My name is Lena Chao, and in communication studies, I'm a professor. And the primary, I'm sort of all over the place. My primary is mass communication. I also would teach the interpersonals, and sometimes I would dip into other areas as well, public relations, writing, and so forth. So I'm all over the place. Oh my gosh. Well, I clearly love it here because I've been here for 30 plus years. I think if you ask anybody who works here, and especially as long as I have, first and foremost, we love the students. Super talented, hardworking, motivated, very inspirational. And so that's always first and foremost. Secondly, I genuinely like my colleagues, and
Right.
especially calm, we're a tight family. The hashtag calm rocks. And so there's a lot of truth to that. We have a reputation on campus for being very collegial. So, and it's just this campus environment, it does dynamic, it keeps you moving, it keeps you forward thinking. So it's really a pleasure every day. Yeah. Great question. I never really had a clear plan. Some people have a plan, from a young age. I sort of, every time I was, at a certain age, something seemed appealing at that moment. And I think it wasn't until graduate school. So my undergrad was in English, and English almost forces you to have to go on for a master's. I think they'll say it's barely worth the paper it's printed on, a degree in English literature, right? So I went into journalism after that. And then what happened was communications, let's say communication studies, was literally on the other end of the hall. So I had worked for an office in journalism called the Media Institute for Minorities, and we were housed right where all the communication faculty were. And so I got to know the folks, and it just seemed like a nice segue afterwards, very, very kind of natural and organic. And that's been the discipline ever since. I've been very, very fortunate to collaborate with some really, really terrific folks. And I'm much better at collaborating because I don't know if I have the discipline to do it on my own. So when I work with great people, it's not even like work or research. It's just, just wonderful, and it's inspiring. And so I had two mentors. One was at USC. I met both of them at USC when I was in the journalism program. And Felix Gutierrez stayed at USC. And then Clint Wilson went over to Howard. And so the three of us, and I represented Cal State LA, and both of them are alums of Cal State LA. In fact, Felix is a distinguished alum. And they have a lot of wonderful stories of their time here. It was probably the 60s, and so forth, a lot of things going on. So two of the nicest, most mellow, chill folks, and you find they have this history of activism, and it's very, very cool. And so sometimes, the research will find you. And so in that case, they were working on a textbook, a third edition, and then invited me to sort of fill the gaps. I fit a couple of different food groups as a female, as a woman of color, and Asian. So we had a nice representation. And then other times, research has, again, intercultural. So that's why I say I'm all over the place. So that book was mass communication. Was racism and sexism in the media. And then the last one was communicating across differences. And that was collaborated with Dr. Cynthia Wong. And so it just kind of happens, and other different projects from work experience, like with the ACLU. And then we did a study on the violence surrounding schools. And that was really, really gratifying. I like to keep things sort of, it's consumer friendly, reader friendly, student friendly. So something that's relevant in the environment. If you look at the media, that becomes very relevant to everybody. We're all consumers of media, and mass media in particular. And so, sort of you see something going on, and then you think, oh, that could be a study there. And then research has also been an interpersonal too. And that was actually a dissertation. And that was sparked actually by my advisor. When you think about research projects, you're going to live and breathe it for a while. What what I like to live and breathe, while I'm doing this project. And that was a lot of fun. That was back in the early days of video dating and so forth. And we were like two teenage schoolgirls, doing some field work. So research can be fun, it doesn't have to just be sort of the nerdy stuff. It can be a lot of fun. And again, it needs to be relevant, at least for me. I believe teaching, again, it wasn't always the plan. Of course, when you're in elementary school, when you always love your teachers, you think, oh, I want to teach second grade, and I would teach fourth grade, and on and on and on. And then you kind of hit college and you're thinking, oh. And so I think what happened is sort of falling into it. Then you start getting the experience, because in my master's program, I was a TA, but we didn't teach. And so just watching great role models in just how gratifying it could be, and just working and being among students. And then you get to the doctorate, and I didn't start off as a TA because I was sort of an outsider because my background was journalism. And so kind of wandered around campus. I worked different jobs, and then sometimes full-time, sometimes part-time, and then eventually fell into a research assistantship. And then after, it was almost when I was finished, I was given TA-ships. And then it became sort of like part-time lecture. And it was just so enjoyable, and I think learning should be rigorous, but it should also not be stressful. Again, it should be very application oriented. And it's the same thing with the research. It has to have relevance, something that you can connect the dots, not something that's so, abstract. And so same thing with teaching, a lot of hands-on, a lot of field work, even theory. If you look at comm theory, let's find something relevant and create projects and presentations that you put it in, you see theory in practice. So I think that's the same thing. And I think that's where we see the intersections. Once again, lots of hands-on projects and field work. So usually especially when I taught the PR classes or capstone, those are some of my favorite classes. We'll always have projects they can do as a group, they could do as a pair or as a solo endeavor. And they pick something like Dr. Curtin has, a client. I know that she has through XenXLA, she sort of has sometimes a list of clients. And sometimes I'll have a list, but I also give the freedom and flexibility to let students choose. Sometimes they have a friend they want to help, launch a business. And it has been nothing short of extraordinary to see students, they create websites or they revamp, they help put up, Instagram, advertisements. They create special events, launch parties. There's so many different things. They've developed swag, and so for those kind of classes, you see there's a portfolio that goes with it. And so with that, I said, this is your portfolio. When you go out into onto the market, you take your portfolio and you can show, how to write a news release, how to write a media advisory or a feature, put everything together, campaigns, flyers, all that promotional publicity. And then for capstone, it ranges from so many different things. They have done special events, they've worked on campaigns, they've helped launch businesses, they've revamped their own business. So they have something very, very tangible, after to show. And also I think it's allows students to see what they're capable of. So the last class before coming over to ethnic studies, had a student and just coming out of pandemic. And this person, when he transferred, said this is when it wasn't what he had signed up for, that you come here and boom, you're all remote and virtual. I mean, you're all having remote online classes. So he relished, the in-class experience. And sometimes he would just come in, even if we were doing field work, he'd just come in, he'd do his, we brainstorm together. One time we just sat there and the sun started to go down. I said, should I turn the lights on? Because it's like, no, it's okay. So literally we just sat there until it was dark. Couldn't see it anymore. And he was just loving the in-class experience.
Yeah.
And it was really heartwarming. You know, a couple students felt the same, and they just sit there and also get to know each other. I said, make at least one friend. And that's what I love about, you know, I said, in person, you know, I see a connection. I see you, I know you. You can come back to me 10 years from now, and I'll be happy to write you a letter of recommendation. Just say, I was in such and such class. This was my project. You know, but when it's virtual and purely online, you don't really get to know that person, you know, that same way. And so this particular student, you know, worked at a surf shop. And so he said, you know, they need to drum up some business. And so he came up with a campaign, a special event. And it was sort of like a board swap. You know, they could bring in their old board and swap for, you know, and then he created a special event. He had one of the owners create, like was a graphic designer, and created you know, artwork for a poster and so forth, and had to, you know, recruit vendors like for food. And afterwards he said he amazed himself that he never thought he could pull it off, you know, and now he sees what he's capable of. So those are the things that make teaching you know, so gratifying. There's so many examples. We've had students, some have gone on for you know, advanced degrees all over the country. We have one that went into politics. Wendy Carrillo is one of our, I think, representatives more locally. We've had graduates go into entertainment, and we also have some that have stayed here. We have one, I think he was in baseball, and he went on to be a coach. I think it was either Michigan or Minnesota, then started his own nonprofit. And let's see, we have one of our graduates who now works for our athletic department, and he's moved up that food chain. I recently recruited one of our graduates to be our communication specialist. And she was so loved here. It was first as an emergency, then she's working up in our provost office, and they love her so much. I think she's in demand here on this campus. I think a lot of people are very interested in recruiting her. So these are some wonderful jobs. Oh my gosh, there's just so many. I'm trying to think now. A lot of them also start their own businesses. You know, they work for all kinds of things. A lot of them have jobs when they come here, and then they just continue or they move up. But every student has had success, you know, in the field. I have not heard anybody who has not landed a good job. So, and I think that's one of the beauties of communication studies. One of the things, you know, that's what I say about, especially PR, why I see that mass comm is so popular, PR. It really encompasses everything, communication. You could go into sales, you could go into real estate, you could go into management, you could go into human resources, you could go into teaching, you could go into just, you know, creative, because our students are also incredibly creative. You could go into graphic design, you could go into entertainment, you could go into sport. You know, we've had students who wanted to go into sports too, you know, big sports fan, and they end up getting jobs with some of the major league, like baseball and so forth, the Lakers. And so it's just, you know, Disney. So it's just boundless, you know, what your opportunities are.